allows it to continue curing before the varnish. So a lot of oil paints say wait 6 to 8 months to varnish. Cool. So welcome. Again, I'm Liz. I am here to talk to you about oil sticks. So, oil pigment sticks, what's the point? Before we do that, we've also got some beautiful Canson Figureas oil paper with us today. Big thank you to Canson who provided this for our demo today. Figureas is a new one to our store, we've only had it for a little while. It is a prepared oil painting paper. So unlike previous papers that are just sort of a thick paper that kind of feels like canvas because it's got a texture pushed in, this one's actually got a barrier on it that is ready to take oil paint and it stops the oil paint going through. I was a little skeptical going, it's not going to go through. I've played with it, it doesn't go through. It does have a slight texture to it that is like a canvas, but it's more like a linen canvas. So it's not like you're sitting there filling in a whole bunch of holes on the paper. It's just a slight texture. So I do encourage you to come up and touch them all and give them a feel and have a look. Really, really handy if you're doing any sort of like painting out and about, plein air painting. You just whip out a page, rip it in half, go for it. Also, I'm a big life drawer, so I've used this at life drawing. Really, really handy again, because if I didn't bring enough panels of other things with coloured backgrounds and what have you, I've got that and I can just immediately paint on it, which has been really nice. I even did a whole lot of pooled medium on one of them to see if it would sink through, and it didn't with liquid fine detail, so that was quite handy. So it currently comes in different inch sizes. So this is a 9.4 by 13 inch pad, and then this one is the 15 inch by 18 inch, but they are changing to the A system, so they will be having A4s and A3s in future. They're just selling this stock first. So yeah, that's quite awesome. So Canson paper, thank you Canson. They've also given 2 brushes that we can play with today. We've got the Imperial Synthetic Mongoose brush, which is a lovely soft fibre brush, and we've got the Catalyst Polytip Bristle for acrylic and oil. These ones are quite lovely because synthetic bristles made of nylon, they're normally just a straight bristle. This one is actually flanged at the tip, so it goes out, and that means it grabs more paint and more medium, more like a natural bristle. So like a hog hair, it goes up and it's got lots of little bits that come off the side, and that's why it grips so much paint. These ones have been artificially made to have that little flange at the tip, so that's quite new and quite cool from Princeton. Yeah, and they come in a huge variety of sizes, and we carry all these in the shop, of course, so we can play with those as well. But let's get straight to the oil sticks. Why do we use oil sticks? Well, oil paint is all fun and games from a tube. We've done that for heaps of years. You can do it all sorts of different texture ways. It always relies on the brush. Sometimes you want to work fast, sometimes you want to act a bit intuitively, sometimes you want to act a bit abstractly. Oil pastels on a canvas do not dry. They do not dry, they're waxy, you can use a fixative and things on them, but they sort of act a bit funny with your fat over lean rule, and you've got to be quite careful with them. Oil sticks are oil paint in a stick form. Main addition that they've added to these ones so that they're stable in stick form is a mineral wax, and that means that they can stay in a stick. They do form a skin around the top, and the skin you can either rub off with a paper towel or scrape it off with a palette knife. I've scraped it off with a palette knife most of the time. Kind of feels like you're breaking the skin off an M&M. And then once you get that off, creamy and buttery underneath and ready to paint. It means you can literally just pick up a stick and just go all over your work. Really fun for abstract backgrounds, sketching if you want to be really abstract and really sort of, not abstract, expressive with your arm and really create a bit of motion. It just has a whole lot of freedom that a brush and constantly having to reload the brush just doesn't have. This one you can just go and go and go. So that's the appeal. The Sennelier Oil Sticks are the ones that have been around the longest. These ones in these cream wrappers are the ones we've had here in store for a long time, and the Shiva Oil Sticks, which look like that. The Sennelier ones have recently been redeveloped, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. The new Sennelier ones have this black label, and they are a new formulation, so they are not just a dressed up to look prettier, they are a completely different stick, and we'll see that when we start playing with them. We do still have a range of the old ones in stock if you prefer those, but once they're gone, it'll be only the new ones in terms of the colour range and the formulation. We also have the newest one to the family, the RNF Paint Sticks. These ones come in a cute little tube. They are a pigment stick, they call them. Not sure why they use the term pigment stick. They do still use oil, but they are an incredibly soft, buttery oil stick, so a little bit different in feel to the others as well. The other thing to note is because these are oil paint, you can use paintbrushes with them, you can use your normal mediums with them, and after appropriate drying time you can use normal oil varnishes with them. So that means they're very compatible with your current oil paintings. This is an example over here of an oil painting I did a la prima of a figure. So this was, I did a cosplay to canvas event, so that's a cosplayer dressed up as Alloy from Horizon Zero Dawn, which is a video game, and then after the fact I've gone in with the sticks to liven it up a little bit and add a bit more action. Yeah?
Question.
Yeah.
Do they all dry at the same amount of time?
They don't, but that's the same as normal oil paint. So it does depend on the pigment. Some pigments dry faster naturally, some pigments dry slower naturally. Some of your natural earth pigments, like your raw umbers and your burnt siennas, they dry faster, and then other ones like titanium white dry slower, and that's a normal oil paint process. If you do go into it with a medium and a brush, you could use a fast dry medium to make them dry a little bit faster, but it's all about application. Thick, juicy application is going to take longer to dry than thin, sort of scruffy applications. So just something to keep in mind, similar to when you're painting thick and thin with normal paints. Yeah. All right, so let's go into Shiva first, which is this fellow here. I've made a little lid for him just with some glassine paper, mainly because I noticed when I was playing with these, they get messy if you let them roll around your desk all day. So that's my main thing. The little hat doesn't come with, but you can make it yourself. Otherwise, put them in some sort of Tupperware container where they're not going to stain your whole desk when you're not using them. The Shiva stick comes in a really hardcore little cardboard tube wrapping, and you've just sort of got to get into that with a knife. It does sort of unpeel, as you can see there, to get it out, but I recommend leaving this on because, again, you'll paint your whole hand otherwise. I have chopped at this with a palette knife, but you can see it's just a matter of sort of going at the edge just a little bit, and it sort of flakes off as you go. So that's a little hard flake off the side. As you let it sit, it will naturally reform a little skin again over the top. So again, the hat wasn't to keep it from drying or anything like that. It was just to stop me drawing on everything, especially during transport. Yeah, so that's the little Shiva stick. When we give this a draw, it's literally drawing. You can push hard and it goes really nice and solid color, or you can use just a little bit of pressure and get that nice texture coming through. Really lovely if you've already got some paint down, because then you can create that texture as you go, and you can layer up multiple colors. A little bit like dry pastels, how dry pastels you can layer one over the other and they'll interact. Because these are wet, of course, they will mix together. Sometimes you'll get some different colors on the top. Just wipe it off with a tissue as you go. Easy peasy. Yeah.
Because we'll be using this camera.
This one's the camera for this stuff.
You won't be on film for this one.
Yeah.
So if you want to go close, feel free.
And absolutely, after I finish talking, everyone can have a scribble and a play. All right? So that's the Shiva stick there. The Shiva stick comes in a range of 51 colours, 12 student colours and 16 iridescent colours. I don't think we get the student colours here, which we don't need them anyway. The 51 colours covers you pretty well. They do say easy cleanup. They recommend baby wipes for cleaning up and baby oil for your hands if you need, just the normal sort of oil paint stuff. They are claiming that they're low odour and hypoallergenic. I can't smell any sort of odour on them, but if you're worried, obviously don't put it right on your nose. Shiva also claims, because they use theirs for more mixed media and craft things, they say for stenciling, upcycling, crafting, faux finish, etc., that most of their colours dry within 24 hours. So theirs probably has the lowest oil content of any of the sticks we're going to look at today, and a higher wax content, which means that, yeah, when I'm drawing with it, it does have a bit of a sort of, I'd say like a buttery crayon feel, a little bit more would be how I'd describe it. And that, yeah, that faster drying time, they probably have a binder or something in there that accelerates the drying time. So that doesn't have that wet, oily feel. The next one, let's play with the RNF Pigment Sticks. As I said, they come in a cute little tube, which I love. Just easy for storage, and again for not making a mess. There we go. I'm not impatient. All right, so again, I made him a little hat. This one is a sample size, so they do come in the standard 36mm size when you're purchasing, and then they also come in larger sizes as well. They come in 103 colours for these ones, and most of them come in the big sizes as well, so they're pretty even across the range. So again, you can see down here, it's got a little bit of a skin on it versus up here where I've carved it, and it's already painting my finger. He's an excited one. So you only need a tiny little bit to carve off, and then you're already in the gooey inside. I'd equate this one more to a lipstick feel. It definitely feels like lipstick. So again, I can just press it, and I'm not even going to use that much pressure. Whoa.
It's like lipstick.
And can you see how glossy that is versus the previous one? That shows you this has a much higher oil content. So they use linseed oil, pure pigment, and natural waxes. So they don't use mineral wax like the Shivas do. They use beeswax and plant wax. So that makes it a more natural product. I think that's where they go into the pigment stick idea. So it's a very sort of original handmade idea. You've got the ground pigments, and then you have linseed oil, ground from plants, and then you have beeswax and plant waxes. So it's all very handmade, hand milled, which is wonderful, and hand molded. So they sit there and put them in the tubes individually by hand. RNF are the only brand they claim to use natural waxes versus everyone else who tends to use mineral wax and things like that. They also allow for the minimum amount of wax, which gives you that really buttery, wet feel as it goes on. Lipstick soft consistency and a greater paint film strength. So as the film dries, it's got a really hard bind to it.
Sorry, are any of them made in Australia?
No, sadly at this point we don't have an Australian maker. The main Australian oil paint brands are Langridge and Art Spectrum, and as yet they have not announced sticks, but that would be cool if they did. I would be very down for that if they did. Alright, next one, let's play with the Sennelier, the older style oil stick. So the older style oil sticks, they've gone through a few little changes. Originally they just came in the shrink wrap, and then they upgraded to having their little box, which again, quite handy for storage, having that little box. Again, I've made mine a little hat myself, but don't worry about the little hats. These ones have a paper covering, but the paper covering has perforations in it, so you can just peel it off in nice little sections. I appreciate that, it's great. They come in a pretty good range of colours. These ones came in 55 colours, and the whole range was available in larger 96 mils as well as the smaller 36 mils. So that was quite a good thing about this range. These ones, again, pure pigments, but made with safflower oils and mineral wax, so a different oil. Safflower oil is favoured by oil painters because it has a very low yellowing capability. Linseed oil does yellow over time. We're talking over 50 to 100 years. So it's not like tomorrow your oil painting's going to look yellow like the Mona Lisa. We're talking over a long time. But safflower oil yellows less than that. It is a slower dryer as well, something to note. This one also uses vegetable oils as an accelerant for the drying oils. So to try and sort of compensate for the safflower oil being a bit slower, they've put the vegetable oils in there to make it a bit faster again. In terms of use, I've found they dry pretty similarly to normal oil paints without the use of a medium, so just straight from the tube. Yeah, in terms of colour range, they're very traditional with their colours, as opposed to Shiva, which likes a lot of these sort of more contemporary colours. These guys like your more classic, your burnt, your raw umbers, your yellow ochres, all that sort of thing. Yeah, so they're quite nice. That way, this one is a Naples yellow. I am pushing a little bit harder with this one, and when you're playing with them, you will notice this one's a bit of a stiffer stick. Not necessarily a bad thing, because it will stay where you put it, and it doesn't have that really wet oil feel. So some people might really like this if they're working on wood or something that's a little bit harder and they want to be a bit more rough as guts with it. If you're rough as guts with this one, you might go through your stick a bit faster. So that's something, again, it'll be up to sort of personal choice and personal preference. Yeah. So again, once these ones are gone, they're gone, but at the moment we do still have some in stock, so that's quite handy. And if you're looking for them on the website, they're in the sales section of the website. Yeah, and we've got quite a few more of those to play with, which is cool. And then we've got the new Senneliers. Brand new and reformulated. How long ago did we get these, Nick? A couple months? 3-4 months, yeah, so still very, very new, which is lovely. They've had their little makeover with their labels, looking a little bit more up to date and not old school cream. Yeah, I know, the hat died, it's fine. I can make another one. Interesting thing about these ones, they both come in their little plastic home, but then they are also shrink wrapped. So they've got the 2-layer as well. But when you peel off the shrink wrap, that peeled off the skin straight away. So that first skin, I didn't have to sit there and carve it off with my knife. It came off with the shrink wrap. Not sure if that's just a quality of the fluorescent colors. This is a fluorescent color one. This is fluorescent yellow. But that was my experience with unwrapping this one. So you can see why it's a slightly different color where the shrink wrap still is. That's the skin that's formed on the top. The fluorescents are incredibly transparent, so that might also be a reason for that color change, is that when the transparent color is touching a surface, it looks slightly darker than when it's open, because now it's got light penetrating it. So this one here, they have reformulated them to have a more glide sensation on application. They do still have safflower oil and the vegetable oil for the drying agent in there, and they say a neutral mineral wax. I don't know how that's different from normal mineral wax, but it's neutral now, or at least that's what they're advertised. They definitely have a different feel. I just need you all to play with this one because it is much wetter and gooier than the other one was, and it really wants to sort of move. It's got a very sort of movie feel about it. These fluorescent colours were not part of the old colour range. The new colour range has 64 colours, so they have introduced 28 27 new colour choices and discontinued some of the old ones. And there's 28 monopigment colours, so it's colours that just have the one kind of pigment in them, so they're really consistent and cohesive with traditional oil paints that use the same pigment. Because yeah, some of these more contemporary ones, your fluoro yellows are going to vary a little bit across different things, but for the monopigment colours, they're going to be really nice and consistent and cohesive and predictable, which is quite handy. They also have a smaller range of the larger sticks that reduce the range to only have 8 colours in the super large sticks, but they're the colours you use all the time, like white. So, you know, not the biggest loss there, which is good. And they also have packs. They've made packs in big sets and the little sets are geared towards certain styles of painting. They've got ones for like skin tones, and they've got ones for like drawing a really cool apple or drawing a seascape, that kind of thing. So that's quite nice if you want to give them a go. So this is a Galcad Light. And with a brush, you can just go into it like a normal oil paint, and it will just spread like a normal oil paint, which is fabulous. Use the lighter colour first. Same thing, a little bit of medium on your brush, and you can just paint it out. That still had blue on it, sorry, or turquoise. So all of them are designed to still work as with normal oil paints. You will notice the more waxy ones, the thicker ones, they take a little bit more medium to get them moving. So this one, if I scrub at it, it will move, as opposed to that one moved instantly because it had a higher oil content. The higher the oil content, the more it wants to naturally move on the surface. Yeah.
What's the drying time for these?
They definitely vary. Shiva definitely sort of 2 to 3 days-ish. And then the old Sennelier sort of 3 to 5 days maybe. And then the RNF and the new Sennelier, you're probably looking to a week to 2 weeks, depending on how heavy your application is.
And then you could apply another colour if you wanted to, if you didn't want it to
If you did want it to blend, yeah. So the main thing with blending is just making sure it's touch dry. My normal tip for touch dry is to press your fingernail into the surface. If it creates a dent, it's not dry enough. If it doesn't create a dent, go for it. Yeah. And it's oxidization drying, so hair dryers and that don't work. It's just time and oxygen, yeah. Really humid environments tend to take a little bit longer, so not super humidity, and that helps.
Oh, does the temperature affect the way these perform? So if it's warm weather, is that more melty?
A little bit. So I've definitely noticed I like storing them in a cool, dry place. The one that I left on my desk in hot weather, it just went a little bit excited. So it wasn't that it was wet and gooey, it was just that it was a bit ready to go. So I definitely leave them in a drawer, and then I find that they stay pretty well. Yeah.
Do different brands like work well together?
Reasonably. Definitely this one being a higher wax content, he sort of loses the battle to the more oily one. The more oily one wants to run around a bit more. And then for the Shiva, for example, if the Shiva has a higher wax content with this one, they behave a bit happier together. But it depends on the reaction you want. Do you want it to run, or do you want it to stay in one spot? Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that, yeah, more experimenting will give you more idea of the behaviour. And you will notice a very slight difference between different colours in the same range. But again, that's because natural pigments, some of the pigments will want to move more naturally than other ones. Yeah. 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 Then I just put up some pictures of a couple of artists that we love who use the sticks. Just for you all to see. We might do this on screen. But this is me, Pensa. She's amazing. She uses the sticks to create really nice blocky textures, and it gives a real freshness to her paintings that don't look sort of overworked, which is lovely. You can see there it's like multi-layer paint and then oil stick over the top. Then we've also got Talia Stanton, who loves creating super textures in her work. She uses aerosol, she uses acrylics, she uses oil, she uses paint sticks, she uses lots of things together to create this multi-textured, gentle but impressive style. And that's her stuff. And then we've also got Adam, how do I pronounce it? Wachard? Wachard, that's it. He goes nuts for the texture. He goes absolutely ham for it, really hardcore. Does he have a favourite stick that he likes? He's used a bunch of them.
Yeah,
Old Senneliers in the past. Has he tried the new ones? Wait, he's into it now. Yeah, so as you can see, he goes at it and he sort of comes back to his canvases repetitively, adding more and more texture. So just 3 very different styles that all use these materials. Yay! So that's our oil sticks. Come have a play. Thank you. It mainly does with oil, so because acrylics doesn't have oil in it, acrylics is just wait for it to dry before going wet over the top of it again.
So it's the fat in the big fat.
It's all about oil content in general. So oil, if I think about it like tomato soup. So if you have a really wet oil and then it develops a skin over the